Good stuff. Paul is now taking by the initiation of this particular session. So, on behalf of DSV, welcome to this exciting webinar we have for you chiming in. My name is Morten, and I will be the facilitator of today's session. And we have a lot of good stuff in the pipeline for you. So I hope that this certainly will be interesting. This has been a webinar that has been thoroughly, I would say, supported by you, our dear customers or potential customers of DSV. We have more than 1,600 customers that have signed up for the webinar, representing more than 40 countries globally. So this is in particular super interesting. Great. I do not know whether we get some info that we may have some double sound. I certainly hope that will not be an issue for everybody. If so, please note that in the comment section, or whether it's only a singular issue. We hope that, and we hope that we can solve it entirely. But other than that, if there is any sound issues, just let us know in the comment section. With me today, I have two guest speakers. One is internal and another one is external. And I'm slightly starstruck here because the external one is Lars Tvede, who is a serial entrepreneur as well as a writer. Lars, for the sake of proper coordination, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, and there's no echo here, so all good.
That's good to hear, and thank you also for confirming on the sound challenges we may have had. Lars, despite that you are a well-known figure in the Danish corporate landscape, it might be also, given that we have viewers looking in here, across 40 countries, it might not be that not everybody is actually aware about who you are. So just a speedy interview in terms of your profile. Lars, what is your background?
I'm an engineer and economist and serial entrepreneur.
Okay, how many companies have you started?
13. Some of them I wish I hadn't found, but others were really good. So 13 in any case.
And how many books have you written?
I have written 18 books, but only 17 have been published, and number 18 comes out next year, and it's about the history and future of intelligence, including, of course, artificial intelligence.
Good stuff. Now we know slightly more about you, Lars, and we will probably know even more about you in the next few minutes. Also, in terms of our internal guest speaker, we have Peter Mathisen. He is our senior director leading up our group innovation organization. Peter, how many books have you written?
Sound?
Peter, I think that you need to unmute. We can't hear you, Peter. This is the... We have a slight issue here with Peter. Just bear with us.
I think I unmuted myself now, so hopefully you can hear me now.
We can.
Okay, great. I haven't written any books, but maybe something to do in my the last years of my career.
That's good to hear. You have the time at least, so that's very nice.
For sure.
Lastly, Morten is my name. I'm overseeing the activities associated with the North Europe in DSV ANC, but I am no expert in this manner, so I will allow Lars and Peter to speak and present primarily, and I will only facilitate the webinar. Just a small thing here before we get going. We have a Q&A section. If you have any questions or comments already now or down the webinar as such, just submit them. We will actually read them as we go, and potentially we can steer the webinar accordingly. But we also have time spared for a Q&A section. Last but not least, we're also getting that in our comments already now, we are recording this particular session, and that will be shared with all of you, so you can share that with your colleagues as well if you actually find that this webinar is interesting. So with no further ado, I will now give the virtual dance floor to Lars, and I know, Lars, you would like to present on your own laptop, so please go ahead.
Yes, do you see my slide now?
Not yet. Not yet.
Not yet. Let me just get the share right here.
Now it's coming.
It's coming now. It's going into
just need
share
to go-
mode.
The share mode, exactly.
Is it
There we
okay
go.
now?
Yes, perfect.
All right. So I've been tasked to talk about the future of AI in more general. So I've been writing about AI in various books especially since 2009, and it was the thing that kind of everybody talked about, but it never really worked, and went through a number of so-called AI winters where people were disappointed. But then the last few years it has started working, and it's absolutely shocking everybody how efficient it is. And the promises for what it will do in the next few years are mind-blowing. So the first thing I looked at for this presentation was how many people are actually using, for instance, the most common, the most popular AI model, which is ChatGPT. And so I have a table here, and it shows the different age brackets from 11 to 20 years and so on, all the way up to 61 and above. And you can see the young people, like 2.5% to 3%, they use it weekly, at least once a week. But when it gets to older people, the typical CEOs, for instance, it's very, very few people who actually use it. And this is, I find this interesting because this is such a dramatic technology, and you can say, yeah, but it doesn't really change anything in my life now, but it will soon if it doesn't do that now. So I'll just take a few quotes from some really senior people from Google who are specialists in AI. This is Mo Gavdat. He was head of AI of Google, some Google research facility. He clearly has a model that predicts the performance of AI, because he says by 2049, AI will be 1 billion times more intelligent than humans. So if any of you ever hear somebody said, yeah, but human cannot code anything that's smarter than ourselves, think again, it can. And I'm going to show that it already does that in many different ways. And then the king of all predictions in technology is Ray Kurzweil. And he is also, I think he worked with AI for 41 years, and he might be the person in the world who has worked for it longest. He's come out with all these predictions that were super, super positive on AI, and other things where people have said, no, it's not going to happen. But he is almost always right. So here he has his own model as well. And here's a really wild quote. It says, by 2056, our non-biological intelligence, so machines, computers, intelligence, will be 1 trillion, not 1 billion, not 1 million, but 1 trillion times greater than total human intelligence. So what he says is we take all the human brains on the entire Earth and add up all their intelligence, and then we take them, stack them against all the computers. The computers will beat them by 1 trillion times. So it's a completely new world that we are going into, and it's happening very fast. So if you just take a snapshot of where we are now, AI has already surpassed most high school students. We have here a diagram that shows various different tests that are, tests on knowledge and intelligence. And if we take GPT-4, which was launched last year, and we take the SAT score, which is internationally used high school exam that qualifies you for getting into universities, GPT-4 match or beat 97% of all students. It's only the 3% best students that it cannot beat. So it's going very, very fast forward. And in order to get a measure of how much AI is learning when you train it, people in the industry, they use a term called effective compute. So compute in itself is, just how much data processing the chips do, bits or bytes per second. But then you also have how efficient is the software that you use for it. Both of them are getting better and better. So I have a graph here that shows a little bit of the history and then the predicted future of this effective compute. So again, this is how much data they process in order to be able to help us. So if we look at GPT-2, which came out in 2019, this was like a preschooler. So a child not old enough to go to school yet, not super helpful, interesting, but not super helpful. Then GPT-3 was like an elementary school schuler, but for instance, on calculations, it was horrible. And I used it quite a lot, but very often I was thinking, oh my God, this doesn't really work. But then came, as we saw, GPT-4 last year, matching or beating 97% of all high school students. So it's a very smart high schooler. But then if we look at what are the predictions in 2028, so this is like 4 years from now, the prediction is a big range, but the range is for between 10,000 times and 10 billion times as much as it is in GPT-4. So it's going to be hyper intelligence, incredibly intelligent. And then what can we compare that to? And what is written to the upper corner to the right, it says like a researcher or an engineer. So you can think, how is a researcher or an engineer different from a high schooler? Well, with a high schooler, it's taking an exam. But if you want an automated researcher or an engineer, that person has to be able to organize his or her life, workflow, etc., do a lot of things, to process it systematically, etc. So this is what we expect to get into over the next few years, and it's beginning already, this year and next year. So the basic structure of what we are building, and to some degree have built already, is that you have a central for a task. Let's say you want to make an automatic scientist. You have a task, and there's an AI orchestrator that oversees all the different things that have to be done for that task. And then that orchestrator works with two things that are very important in AI today. One is transformers. So transformers is about how to process words, language. And what happens in our brains when we hear words is that we understand a word in the concept of its sentence, and we understand the sentence in the concept of the whole discussion, and we understand the whole discussion in the concept of our entire worldview. Otherwise, the whole thing would be senseless to us. So transformers do this all the time in our brains, but they also do it in AI. And the other thing is agents. So you can think of agents as small robots. If you're driving a car and you put it in some kind of auto brake mode, for instance, or you have a thermostat in your house, this is a little robot that does different things. So people have made hundreds of thousands and then millions of different agents that can do different things. Many of them can be downloaded for free. This is connected to the internet. And then here is, this is a screenshot running in real time. So it's not been sped up. It's from a software expert who's working on a task using agents. And you can see how each agent launches a new task, which launches a new task, which launches a new task, and different things are going in parallel. This is what we very often do as humans in complicated social situations or academic situations or other work-related situations. So this is what it can do now. So it's very, very agile. It can adapt to what it learns down the road and what new impulses get in. So yeah, so we have this connected to the real world, which is illustrated in orange here. IoT means Internet of Things. These are all the different devices that are measuring, doing stuff, which are connected to the internet. And then to robots. And I'm going to come back to robots because we are not far away from the big robot explosion. And then there's one more cogwheel now down at the bottom. It's called quantum computing. So that's a new form of computers that will be, for some task, about 1 million times faster than the fastest computers today. So just some words about agentic workflow. So these are workflow where you have these many different agents that work together. You see on this slide, you see a little name up in the right corner. That's a company called Supertrends that I founded. And we use 14 different agents to map the future of technology and science and map the present technology and science. And for instance, every day, these agents, they read 5,000 different magazines, check for 3,000 different works, words, write about 300 stories about what happened in the world today. Check if if they have written a similar story before. Check if we have predictions that this should happen next year, but it happened this year, and so on. Illustrate it, tag it, and so on. So this is an example of how you work with a lot of different models. But one of the things that is a really big focus for the industry in general, and also for our company, is chain of thought. This, first you think about this, and you talk with somebody about it, then you come to a conclusion, then you change something, you go back. So this systematic step-by-step thinking, which AI, the big GPT or Gemini and so on, are not that good at today. And then putting the result into a framework, like a report framework, for instance, that's called scaffolding, and then using external tools. So when you ask GPT about doing a calculation and it gets it completely wrong, it's because it's not yet so good at using a calculator. It shouldn't try to figure the answer out by itself. It should use a calculator in this case. But let me give you just a case so you can feel what it's about. Let's say here we have Maria. She's sitting in a car. She says, give me a written analysis of the future of work. And then the agents go to work to deliver this. And then they put together a report for her. And it doesn't look anything like what you would get from GPT or Gemini, because it has a scaffold. It has a framework with bullet points, with illustrations, with diagrams, with a systematic list of content, and so on. And the way you do this is you have a number of different agents at the same time going out and solving one part of it. It's like if you go to a consulting company, if you imagine, and you ask the consulting company to make such a report, they would maybe put 5 or 6 people on it. Each would focus on a part. Now, this is what the agents can do, but they can make such a report, at least we are running this, we've been testing this for many months now, can make such a report in less than 60 seconds. So this is an example of what you can do. Another thing that we work on is that we have turned me and other people into digital twins. So they have uploaded all my books to my digital twin. So my digital twin knows all the books. It's connected to Super Twins. I have taken some personality test for it also. So that's what you see here is me in the middle. And then there's 2 people in Bangkok who are interviewing me while I'm sleeping, actually. So I didn't know they were doing this.
We have no sound here, Lars. Unfortunately.
So in this situation, you can talk with the digital twin, and you can choose your language. It speaks about 40 different languages, and it recognizes if you're talking Chinese, it will answer in Chinese. So with such a situation, you can also make education, for instance, where 2 different digital twins are talking together to discuss a subject, and then on the side you have different technical illustrations of it. So it can be used in very many ways. Another thing that's very important is something called self-play. So maybe some of you have heard about once Google had a computer that beat the world champion in a game called Go. Go is the most complicated game in the world. And then they made the software called AlphaGo, and then they made a new one the year after called AlphaGo Zero. So AlphaGo Zero learned about the rules, but it had never seen a game. But then it started playing with itself, and it would do a play against itself in less than a second. And was just going play, 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 play. And in the beginning, when it started, it played like a complete idiot. After 9 hours, it played like a world champion. So this is an example of how these systems can teach themselves a lot. And this has been used also in science. So here you see a pie diagram, which is black. And then I don't know if you can see, there's a tiny, tiny blue string that goes up, and that represents.
We can see it. We can see it.
You can see it. Okay. That represents how many proteins that all scientists in the world through the last decades had analyzed in terms of how they fold in 3D. It's super complicated to analyze. It would normally take a PhD student 2 years to find out how one would do it. But then some teams, they put 2 different systems on it, one called EMSFold, another one AlphaFold, on analyzing this just with self-play. And then one of them, within 2 weeks, it found 772 million protein foldings. So it completely beat the scientist, and it was actually more than 5 million times faster at doing this than the scientists had been. There have been similar things, for instance, with finding out how many crystals you can make. There's a software called GNOME, and in 17 days, it found out how to make 2.2 million different crystals. Then we have the physical AI.
Just before we go into the physical AI, I'm just, I'm curious on, and if we go back to the slide, we don't have to go back, but just if we refer back to the slide related to artificial intelligence and these age brackets, you showed too that the different age brackets, they were not using ChatGPT to a high extent, but I'm just thinking that given the way that this is progressively developing, I also assume that the users related to applications such as ChatGPT as well as many others, that will just be as progressive in the time to come, right?
Yeah, so it will spread, and so it's actually very easy to go in and use ChatGPT, and that's why a person like me is a little bit surprised that no more people use it. But it's more complicated, of course, to adapt a lot of different specialized AIs in a corporate setting. So you probably need to have some experts help you to implement that. But I think that this will grow absolutely exponentially.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know.
If I can add on that, Morten, because I just like Lars, I find this pretty scary actually, because we have these capabilities readily available today, and if we don't use them as professionals, we will be overtaken by people who are using them.
Yes.
So I can only encourage to everyone who hasn't done it already, start working with ChatGPT, Llama, and the other platforms. And not only for your vacation planning, it will do that very well, by the way, but for your professional work, input to your presentations. It helps your productivity tremendously, and it makes sure you don't forget anything. And it's just like a booster. It's like that perfect personal agent that's never moody, never tired, always at work. This I can only recommend. And we particular guys like me, who is just above 30, we will lose this game here if we don't start adopting this technology and use this as a productivity booster.
I can only agree so much. And another thing I think that many people experience is that many people say, yeah, but it will not be creative like people. I find that it's in many cases more creative than people. Yesterday I asked AI, I took the book manuscript for a forthcoming book. And then I asked it to draft a storyboard for a 6-episode TV documentary based on the book. And it did that in 2 minutes, and I changed almost nothing. I thought it was really good. So amazing. Anyway, so when people talk about the future of AI, they use a term called physical AI, but it's really, this is robots that are connected to very high levels of AI, also hyper intelligent. And these robots are being built by a number of different companies around the world right now, mainly in China and the US. Elon Musk has a famous project, but I'm going to China tomorrow and staying there for 4 or 5 days, and I'll see some of this. So these robots are beginning to work. So people in the industry generally assume that it's between 2028, 2029, that this will really become a mass market. So these are different from the robots you have in car factories, for instance, which are bolted to the floor and doing the same thing in repetition. These are versatile robots, and many of them are humanoid, meaning that they fit into the human environment. So we've done a few calculations on this. First of all, how much time and money does it take to raise a workforce, a human workforce? On average, some people take short education, some people take longer education, but maybe on average, people are 22 years old when they join the workforce. It costs somewhere between $150,000 and $400,000 to raise, from a baby up to somebody who can work. But you can build a robot in a factory maybe in a day, and it costs maybe $10,000. And in terms of labor force after that, it's probably 20 times cheaper per hour. So it's around $2 per hour and so on. So this thing is joining the global workforce within the next not very many years. So that will also change a lot. I'll just give you a few milestones. We have 4,000 different predictions in Supertrends for the future, but just a few that are relevant for this. So next year, it's expected that AI writes 80% of all software code in the world. It's very good at it. Next year, people will have on their iPhones, they will have a personal AI that helps them in their own personal life. And personal AI will also be able to operate computers and household devices. In 2030, AI training cost for a given amount of data will have dropped 99.99% since 2020. So what they actually do is they train on more and more data, so it doesn't drop. But just to do a specific training gets cheaper. In 2030, PCs will have a compute capability like a human brain. So you go down on a shop in a corner, you buy something similar to yourself. That's kind of thought-provoking. And 2038, half of all cars in the US have full auto drive. That means you can completely sleep or whatever when it drives. So that was my presentation. Thank you for your patience.
But you're not done yet. You're not done yet, Lars. But good stuff so far. We have a few questions coming in already now, and I think it would be good to merge some of them. And we use them before. Right? Yeah, you can stop sharing. But first of all, when we look into what kind of threat that this will provide in terms of jobs overall. Could you, and we've discussed this in our planning as well, right? The three of us, but could you and Peter also please chime in as well? But could you please provide somewhat an input on that? Should we be in fear of AI overall in terms of works?
Okay, so we've looked a lot into the economic studies of that. So history tells us that technology on average does not create unemployment because we have increased the global GDP 46,000% since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution without creating systematic unemployment. But of course, it creates a lot of turmoil. So people are concerned that if AI and robots beat us on everything, will there be jobs for us? And what I see is that the most common answer from macroeconomic experts is that if you invest heavily in it, you will not get unemployment. The risk is that you are the only one who does not invest in it, because then you will lose jobs because of competition.
Yeah. You will fall behind. So it comes back to Peter's and your comment on get going, despite not knowing entirely where to go. And this links me to the next question that we have here, and that is, do you have any? Now we have a lot of questions. Now I have to find it again. But do we have any particular AI tools apart from ChatGPT that you would recommend to somewhat boost efficiency, but maybe also boost, you could say, the more experience with AI in general?
Who is the question for?
Well, you can go, Lars, if you have any answer, of course.
Well, I would recommend anybody to start with. I think the easiest is to start with GPT and Gemini, and they each have a free version and a paid version. And then try to give it all sorts of tasks to get familiar with how this thing actually works. For me, it's a massive productivity booster. I'm not using Google search anymore. I just simply ask questions to AI and I get structured answers. It's fantastic.
Great stuff. Thank you so much.
I agree. I fully agree. It's a big booster of your productivity, and also to ensure that in reports and so on that you have covered everything, right? So your quality and your productivity goes up, and you learn every day. That's the best thing, right? AI alone is not really relevant, but when we start adopting the knowledge that we're exposed to, that's when we become more relevant.
Yeah, and I have a little tip there, because instead of just asking a question and getting an answer, you should think of it as somebody you have a dialogue with. So this chain of thought that I mentioned, is you can actually have that with AI. So you have a dialogue. You say, what do you think about this? And then it comes with an answer. And they say, if that is the answer, should I then this? And how about your forth and back is really efficient.
I do have another question here coming in, and that is, how do we know that this is not the digital twin of Lars Tvede presenting?
Because I can't speak Chinese.
Good. Okay, well, we have many more slides. So basically what we want to take you through now is the link up to logistics and the way that we actually work with this in terms, when it comes to AI, robotics, the future of logistics, how we actually work with this internally within DSV. And there is a lot that we actually work upon. So this is super exciting as well. Lars, you will stay on board as well, and please chime in if there's anything that you want to comment upon when it comes to Peter's presentation. And then we will finalize the actual session with drilling down on recommendations and suggestions on how you can actually incorporate AI robotics into your own organization. So with no further ado, Peter, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. So within DSV, we work with the technology radar here to depict both internally and also externally to our shareholders and customers how we engage with the new technology. So the inside of the onion here, the blue part, is the technologies which we have successfully tested and which we are rolling out in our organization as we speak. The next layer is technologies which we are currently testing. I can call out like semi-autonomous trucks. We have a semi-autonomous truck running in Germany at the moment. Generative AI, of course, we will get back to that as well. The next layer is assessing. So those are the technologies that we are currently assessing the feasibility towards the use cases and problems that we have internally, right? So that's either the technology is not quite there, or we don't have the perfect use case for the technology. And then the outer layer, that is the future looking, so the 3, 5, 10, 15 years into the future, what do we see happening? And as you saw with the video that last year, that there already is an AI avatar of Lars, so I probably have to pull the AI avatar further in the circle, right? I call out two, I think, quite interesting things that we see is that fully autonomous trucks, Lars alluded to it as well, right, on the personal car side. But within the trucking industry, we are already expecting next year that we can start testing fully autonomous trucks, so what's called level 4, in particular in Germany, where the legislation is in place. So it's happening now. We will not be able to buy one within the next until 3, 4 years, 5 years down the road. But the technology is there. So AI, machine learning, and so on is really boosting this technology as well. So it's ready. And what we're waiting for is legislation. Another one I want to call out is Hyperloop and high-speed rail. Some of you may have heard that Elon Musk has built a Hyperloop in California, where they're using electromagnetic rails instead, so there's no friction. And then it's an airless tube. So you can drive 1,000 kilometers an hour with a train. Well, that's interesting from a passenger side, but we're in logistics, so we are looking at this from how quickly can we move our cargo, right? So there are projects right now where they're looking at moving cargo and containers in Hyperloop with up to 1,000 kilometers. So get your container from Hamburg to Paris in 1 hour, stuff like that. So a lot of things are happening in this space. I'm gonna zoom in on 4 areas just to give you a flavor of what we're doing when we talk about AI, but also other linked technologies, right? So I'll talk about AI, of course, and circular supply chain and digital warehouse twins. So more twins, not of humans, but of warehouses, and then our drones as well, our autonomous drones. And I just want, when we talk autonomy, and it's also linked to AI, of course. Will a lot of people be laid off now when the robots are coming and so on? But to Lars's point, any new technology implemented in history created more jobs, right? Any technology. And we have to stand by that. We may have to do different jobs in the future where our cognitive intelligence will be more needed than our hands. But we will still have a job. But a lot of people who have manual jobs today where they don't have to use their cognitive ability too much, they will have to be challenged and use their cognitive intelligence more and have more challenging jobs, because those jobs, manual jobs, will be taken over. But at least when I talk to a lot of our people who are driving forklifts and stuff like that, I mean, they could think of other things which they might find interesting in our company than driving the forklifts, as an example. Right?
And we do, Peter, we do get a comment here as well that we are seemingly quite positive here, and maybe we are overly positive. I don't know, but some within or on this call is not sharing necessarily all the positiveness that we provide here. But I also believe that, seen from my point of view, that the fear of change and the fear of the future may certainly provide some skepticism, but also a lot of opportunities. So it's about the adapting. It's about deep diving into, okay, what kind of possibilities can AI robotics actually provide overall? And if we look back in history, it is confirmed by Peter as well. We don't necessarily lose out on any jobs, but we will just change the direction of the content of the work that we actually do.
Exactly.
Peter,
we see a shift in the workforce. I think when we talk about fears, when you take a quantum computer and you feed it with AI, then you will have the most amazing tool in the future, which will have a huge impact on our daily lives, all of us. But in the wrong hands, this has the power of a nuclear bomb. So in the wrong hands, taking that kind of compute together with artificial intelligence in the wrong hands, you have a terrible weapon. And that's my fear. My fear is not on the workforce side. That technology, like all other technologies, in the wrong hands. But now we're getting into a scale where this is real stuff, right? And we need to be very mindful of that. Cool. AI and ML, and machine learning, we are on the topic already, right? And I think in general, it's important to call out AI is an umbrella terminology for close to 20 other technologies. And when we talk AI, we have to remind ourselves to be more specific what we are talking about. Right? Most CEOs in the world have, within the last 2 years, come to the organizations like, guys, we need to do something with AI. Our shareholders, our investors, they want us to do something with AI. And then, if he went to the wrong guy in the IT department, the guy would say, well, we had algorithms in our ERP system for the last 50 years, so we're good, boss. You can go back and say we're good. And this is where the conversation needs to be more specific. Well, what Lars was showing, and what we're also to some degree talking about here, is how generative AI and the large language models really have pushed AI into our daily lives and into all our professional lives as well, right? So we have to be sometimes a little more specific when we talk about the AI as a technology. So where to start? So we hear a lot in the media about AI is hyped. Organizations just like DSV cannot get enough value out of it. There's a lot of pressure that we need to deliver value from AI. And often when you start with the technology and then try to find a problem to solve, you will miss the real problems. And within DSV, we always remind ourselves to start with the problem, not the technology. So we look for the biggest problems to solve. One of the biggest problems we have found to solve is that we still get close to 10 million booking emails every year. 10 million emails where a customer of ours has taken data from their ERP system, put it into an email, and send that email to us. And then one of our colleagues can take that same email and write that same information into our transport management system. Now, talking about jobs that I would like to get rid of in the future, that's one of them, right? And now we have the technology to do that. Historically, we could take structured data, extract it from paper and emails, Excels and so on, and inject it into our systems. But now with neural language processing and machine learning and so on, we can actually take unstructured data from emails and even conversations and put them into a structured format and inject them into our systems. So that's a good example of a job that we are not too sad of getting rid of, right? We will rather use our time on something else than double keying information. Another thing is data correction and enrichment. Today, we think if we have an EDI connection with a partner or a customer or supplier or whatever, that we're good. But fact is that a lot of the data that we are receiving from our customers, the quality is low because a lot of the data that we need may not be present in the ERP system of our customer. So our operators are still typing away to fill the requirements of that particular shipment. And we can do that again also with machine learning and AI and NLP and so on, and enrich these EDI that we're getting before it's injected into our systems. So the operators don't have to do any keying. We can start executing the stuff that we love to do, keep the supply chains flowing. Another area is automation of any manual processes. Basically, today you have to challenge. Historically, we have automated what we could automate. But with the new technology, you can automate the rest. So go in and look at those manual processes you have internally and challenge yourself if the technology is there today to automate this so we can create more value. And the last one, of course, is the co-pilots. All the applications that we know today is coming with co-pilots. Microsoft is coming, Google coming, GitHub is coming. And Lars talked about it. And next year, 80% of all computer code is written by AI. So GitHub, the coding platform, they have a co-pilot now that can do the coding for you. So a lot of things are happening here.
But Peter, maybe you should just give a highlight on what is an actual co-pilot.
A co-pilot is just like ChatGPT, but it's linked directly to a application that you're working in. And it's a good question, one, because we're used to when we work in applications today that there is a screen, what we call a user interface, and then there's a lot of fields that I have to fill out, and then I press enter to go and execute my search or my entry. But in the future, most applications will be one line where I write, please make this booking with these details, or I will simply link it to the email that the customer sent to me, and then the agent will do it themselves, right? So this user interface that we know is going to disappear. It's going to be either by voice or by text that I simply tell the application what I want to do. And we're seeing that a lot of applications that we're working with today, that they are offering this, where you have one line and you can simply just say, find this shipment for me and show me the pictures of the surveillance from yesterday. I don't have to fill out 20 fields to do that. I just write and tell the system what I want. And this is where the change is now, that the prompting, as we call it, the dialogue, Lars alluded to as well. Man.
Very good, good
Cool.
stuff. Well, just in terms of coordination and timing here, Peter, we need to speed it up a little bit. I know we have so much to talk about.
I'll speed up. I promise I'll stop breathing. So just briefly, why does organizations fail? Because we just agreed a lot of companies are struggling to get value out of this. Well, the biggest one is they forget to change the organization. When you're changing processes, you need to change the organization as well. So if, for example, we can take away half an hour of every single employee in DSV, that they don't have to do bookings anymore, we will not see that impact on our bottom line until we consolidate that activity into a center of excellence. So whatever we cannot automate is handled in that center of excellence. So you have to implement the organizational change, and by experience, and that's why I have no hair, organizational change is much more difficult than the technology change. And I mentioned that always start with the problem, never start with the technology. You get biased with the technology. The technology will make you biased and you'll not find the biggest problem to solve. Moving on. Digital warehouse twins. We saw the twin of Lars. Now let's look at a twin of warehouse. At DSV, we're working with two technologies. Both are very much dominated with AI, and in this case, it's camera vision. So basically, we're using our existing CCTV camera footage that we have in our warehouses, and we put AI and camera vision on top of it. So what happens is that every time a pallet comes into a warehouse, it gets a digital tag. We are then scanning that pallet, and then we know exactly which pallet it is. And then we can follow this pallet through the warehouse. We can tell operators what to do and what not to do. So we will stop by having misplaced pallets or misplaced cartons and so on. We can also start looking at damage now. We can detect damage. We can detect dimensions. All of this we can start doing with the existing hardware that we have, with the camera surveillance we have already, right? So amazing. I don't have to go and buy thousands of new cameras. I can use what I have, and then I can implement AI on it. Really, really cool stuff here. For a crossdock like ours, this is really cool. Now, in our solutions division, for example, where we are keeping long-time storage of cargo for our customers, we are operating up to 15 meters height. So many stories of storage in a warehouse, and the camera technology cannot handle the height. Camera technology can operate in 2 dimensions, X and Y. But when we operate with the Z-axis, which is the height, that technology is not ready. And so what we're doing within DSV is that we are working with something that we call edge technology. So basically, we have dressed up our forklift with cameras, with lidars, and with radars, and a small computer, and then we put it to work. And what actually happens is that the warehouse becomes the warehouse becomes a three-dimensional, high-resolution three-dimensional space. So have a look at this here. So the forklift now drives towards a pallet. It's fully dressed in lidars and radars, and it picks up a pallet. It knows where this pallet is within 3 centimeters precision. And you can see to the left now that the coordinates are changing. So even when the pallet is moving, so in transit, I know exactly where it is. So now this guy was, I think, tasked to go to D9 to drop it. He almost hit a colleague, but the system is slowing down his colleague automatically. So we prevent collision, and we can increase the speed of the forklift. It will also keep an eye out for pedestrians. Here's a pedestrian, slows down for the pedestrian. And then in the other side to the left, you will see my colleague. He had a bad day, so he hits the rack. But we are automatically capturing that he hits the rack, and we'll make an error report. I'm then trying to drop the pallet into D6. That's not correct. I'm getting a red light. So I tried to drop it in D9, and perfect. That was what I was supposed to do. And I don't have to scan it in because the system knows where the pallet is, and we're sending that message to our warehouse management system, right? So really, really cool technologies, 2 different technologies for 2 different use cases within DSV. So really, really cool stuff. Drones. We are looking at autonomy in everything, right? So we talked about autonomous trucks, robots in general, and also drones. So we have deployed autonomous drones now to support our customers in the offshore industry. We're looking into high-tech, high-value right now. We're looking into mining. But this is an example of a technician standing at the top of a wind turbine, 50 kilometers from shore, and he needed 1 spare part to finish the repair of the wind turbine. For reference, a wind turbine not in operation is around 100,000 euros per day, right? So if we can save just 1 day, we are the heroes. And here's the hero of the day coming in. And just start the video here. So this is a fully autonomous drone, which has been given a mission: deliver the spare parts to this particular location. When it gets close to the platform, it makes the drop, perfect drop, hopefully, and the technician can now take that spare part and continue the work. The drone we're working with here has a payload of 3 kilos, but we are right now deploying drones with 50 kilos, which totally changes the use cases here, right? So offshore oil, emergency, Medicare, you name it, a lot of use cases with drones.
I can relate it to where I am today. I'm sitting up in Norway, and as a country, it's a very long country where the density of the population is primarily in the southern parts of Norway. But if we go up north, to certain islands as well, the level of inhabitants is not that high. But still, the need for medicine could be very high, right? And this is a strong, you could say, methodology to deliver medicine or other needed supplies in a short time of span, right? So
Yeah, for sure. And we have like data centers we have coming in right now where if something is down and need a spare part, you cannot wait an hour for a truck to reach you. You need that within 10-15 minutes, right? So a lot of use cases are popping up now, and legislation is changing so that we can also start flying in more less remote areas. The last topic I want to touch upon is circular supply chain. We have now, for the last couple of years, I think all the organizations around this table trying to grasp the sustainability piece, right? So we have been mapping our emissions. We have been looking at how we can reduce our emissions in production and also in supply chain. DSV is one of the front runners in this. We just bought 300 electric trucks, by the way. But what's coming right now on the backside of this and linked to sustainability is circular supply chain. So the market is now expecting that producers are being really careful what they're sending to their customers, right? This goes for packaging, this goes for the product itself. How can we modularize it so when we don't use it anymore, we can break it into pieces. Some can be reused, some can be discarded. There's a lot of things happening in this space here. And for DSV, this will have a huge impact as well, right? Today, we're helping our customers, in general terms, move cargo from their side to their customers. In the future, we need to get that cargo back. And very often, our customers don't know who the end user of the product is. So how do we get out to that end consumer, get that product, used product or wrapping or whatever it is, get that back? But most of our customers, they don't really want the product back. They want the raw material. Because I don't know if you noticed, but this year, we ran out of resources on Earth on the 1st of August. Right? And every year it gets earlier. The mine of the future is not the mines in the ground, it's the products we already produced. Already now we see it in the automotive. They are going and dismantling the used cars, the batteries, for example. It's going to be a huge mine of minerals in the future. So a lot of things are going on. In the lower right corner, you can see a very good example of the value creation that you have. IKEA just launched a second-hand page, I think, was it in Oslo and Madrid, where you can actually go in on an IKEA page and you can buy used IKEA products. How amazing is this? You can see in the lower right corner how much value that same couch is creating in the used market, right? So it's coming big, and the beautiful thing is it's driven by demand by the customers and less by legislation. But legislation is, of course, coming right on the backside of that.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter. And nice to know that it's not all about AI. It's also about circular economy, which is good for sustainability. Now, I do have one question for you, Lars, and it's also coming up here rapidly on many of the comments coming in. Energy consumption. We know that AI is generating a lot of demand towards energy. But can you maybe set a few comments on that?
Yeah, this is something that the big players in these big foundational AI systems are very alert to. And also, if you think that AI will be 1,000,000 times more powerful than the human mind, of course, it's going to consume a lot of energy. There are various efforts to create completely new sources of energy, which will probably not really be in sync with the super fast development of AI. Nuclear fusion is one of them. So I have 2 days ago, I spoke with a scientist in nuclear fusion, and we have mapped the progress. We think that between 2035 and 2045, nuclear fusion will work commercially in a number of different places, in a number of different versions, and that will solve these problems. But it will be tight until then. There's also something called natural hydrogen, which is the big discoveries of hydrogen in the ground that you can pump up like you pump up gas. So that can also help. But and then there's more nuclear reactors. So there are different technologies on the way. A lot of them will really break through within the next 10-15 years or so. And eventually, I think nuclear fusion will really be the solution to that question.
But do you believe that it will be kind of the black sheep in the herd, similar, when I talk about CO2 emissions, and this is also a question here, similar to air freight, or you could talk about, people traveling on airplane or, red meat consumption, that sort of stuff, or will it somewhat be absorbed with the new supply of energy that many are looking into? What is your opinion?
Well, because the question has two facets. The first one is that the reason that you become more competitive when you use AI and robots is that they use less energy than people. I mean, that's a part of the reason. They deliver better service, and they net, when you think of everything, they use a lot less energy. For instance, if you have robots working 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, you have much more utilization of the physical construction, which is a factory and everything in it. But if you look at the macroeconomic effect, it's probably what this probably means is that this is an addition to our economy. Now, people don't go away. There will still be, energy consuming. People will just do different things.
Yeah.
So on the margin, it will require more energy than we would need without it.
Thank you. Peter, we talked about, and this is also linked to some of the questions coming in. You talked about, in order to make a move on this, seen from a customer angle or the audience of today, look at the problem firstly, then you take the technology. But let's say you have identified your problem. You have identified the software that can support you. What will be the typical next step in this regard? Also linked up to this, and Lars, maybe you can chime in on that later, but where can our customers find more inspiration to get going? So, if we look outside of... Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but it's a good question, but I think it goes for anything when you mix technologies and try to fix problems. Fail fast, right? So you find a partner, a provider, a startup, whatever, that can deliver that technology, and you make a small scale test. We call it a proof of concept. You validate that this technology actually solves the problem. Don't venture into global market scans and finding big suppliers and huge projects before you have actually tested that this works and the business fit is there as well. And then once that's validated, then you go full-blown market scan, contracts, and so on. But we always run a very small condensed proof of concept to see that this is actually working. And what we always say in DSV, and that's not for all companies, even our proof of concept has to be profitable. If I cannot prove that this is profitable, how can I prove that a rollout to 75,000 colleagues is profitable? So that's key as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Peter. Last, very briefly, where can our viewers of today, where can they find more inspiration? Not only ChatGPT and Gemini, but is there any forums online or similar stuff associated with this where you can be inspired from?
When I'm driving a car, because it's not level 4 self-driving, or when I'm exercising and so on, I always listen to podcasts on Spotify, and I follow different people who are on the forefront of these things. Some of it is, very nerdy, but some of it is really at the level where anybody like myself can understand it, and I get a lot of insight from that. So I think that's useful.
Thank you so much. We are running out of time. I'm so sorry. We have even more. Questions coming in, and I'm sorry for not being able to answer on all of them. We simply need to finalize. We have an upcoming webinar for inspiration and for your guidance. This is on our market trends overall, what we see from the past quarter, and also looking into the upcoming quarter, or this quarter that we've actually entered. This will be on the 19th of September at 10 a.m. CET. We have the CEO of the biggest rate platform worldwide, Zeneta, and the CEO is called Patrick Berglund. So we will send out invitations shortly, and you are all welcome to participate on this particular call. For now, I would like to thank you, Lars, and you, Peter, for chiming in. We will share the recording. We will also share the associated recording will be the presentation as well. I have Karin here in my background. She's the spider in the web and allowing us to succeed with this. So thank you for your support, Karin, as well. And lastly, we wish you all a very great day. Thank you for calling in. Lars and Peter, thank you for chiming in. And we hope to see you next time, everybody. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.